Kicking off the list at number 10, William Thomas Stead. Born in 1849, William Thomas Stead was the son of Congregationalist minister, and at the age of 22, he was appointed as editor of the Northern Echo, a regional newspaper in Darlington. This British medium, Richard Borsonov, featured a photo of W.T. Stead and a spirit. Or a demon. One of the two, both pretty terrifying. While William was investigating a spiritual case, he took this photo with what's supposed to be the spirit of Pete Botha. Now, the reason many believe that maybe the spirit is evil is that Stead later on died in the Titanic. He boarded the ship to take part in a peace congress at Carnegie Hall, and survivors mentioned William Thomas Stead a few times. Apparently at dinner, he was chatting his way throughout the entire 11-course meal, recounting exciting, spooky times in his life, even mentioning a cursed mummy that he encountered at the British Museum once. That's a little odd for table talk. He even gave his life jacket to another passenger that night too. Stead would often claim that he would one day pass due to hanging or to drowning. And right before he was to be awarded with the Nobel Peace Prize, he passed away due to the latter. Was he cursed? I believe so, to be honest with you. What do you guys think? Number 9, the demonic boy photograph. It doesn't matter where or when, but odds are you've probably seen this photo at some point. All those late nights when you're scrolling through Reddit, you've probably seen this at some point. I know I have, and every time I see it, I'm kind of like, it looks pretty real. It's pretty haunting. You know when you see a photo, sometimes you get bad vibes, like it registers in your brain as something scary and real. Like you want to find something that looks fake about the photo, but it's tough. This photo was taken inside the Amityville house in 1976. It appears to be a young boy or ghost, spirit, demon, whatever, with glowing white eyes. It was taken with automatic cameras equipped with infrared. And it makes it even creepier that the boy looks like he's peeking around the corner. Like he knew something was coming almost, he didn't want to get caught. That's the creepiest part here. A photographer named Gene Campbell took it, and Gene was working with paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren at the time. Yeah, the famous duo now rocking the big screen Conjuring universe. This was a real thing. They were on this case in real life. This photo was revealed 3 years after it was taken, and it was revealed on the Merv Griffin show. Imagine seeing this on a show, like Jimmy Kimmel whips this out. It's like, hey, we're gonna play Plinko. Check out this demon. Many believe this is the ghost of John DeFeo, one of the boys who lived there prior during the 1974 event. Now we're still trying to cover this one, but what do you guys think? Is this an elaborate hoax? Is this a young boy? Or is this one of the many demons that was said to haunt the house? Sound off down below. Number 8, the SS Watertown. This picture here perhaps is one of the creepiest on this list. I'm not sure what to think of this one. It comes from 1924 and it shows what appears to be two older men, or two older figures almost. I don't know, it's water, it's hard to tell. Some believe it's James Courtney and Michael Meehan in the water. Now the two had previously died and were buried at sea, hence that's why their first thought was them as to who it was. Other crew members saw these strange faces in the water as well, so when they turned back to get another look, 5 out of the 6 photos showed nothing. This was the only photo that showed what they saw. Are these the two lost crewmen, or is the vessel haunted by sinister forces? Number 7, backseat driver. This photo is from 1959. Okay, it was taken by a lady named Mabel Chinnery. And the photo at first glance is just a classic 60s shot of a man in a car. That man was Mabel's husband. Now the man in the back seat, however, that back left seat, we have no idea who that was. Her husband apparently was the only guy in the car at the time. And also, that's a pretty tough angle. If you wanted to recreate this photo with your friends after work, like try this. This is a really hard shot, even with phones now. It would be hard back in the day. It's like he's appearing to us through the seat almost with that angle. So either this is a lie, which happens often, people can lie, and a man was sitting in the back left seat, or like Mabel thinks, maybe this is her dead mother-in-law. Now, if she had said father-in-law, I think maybe it was his spirit, but this for sure looks like an older gentleman with a collar or something. Kind of looks like, dare I say it, the devil. I don't know, I read a lot of comic books. Number 6, Coventry Society Demon. You may be thinking, some of these may not be demons, Taylor, maybe they're just nice spirits who stuck around after they passed. Yeah, while it's nice to believe that, photos like this convince me otherwise. This is from the Coventry Freeman Society, and it shows everybody at this event dressed to the nines. But when you look at the top left corner over here, you see a hooded figure. Somebody that clearly doesn't belong with the vibe in this room at this event. Nobody else was seen also at any point at that night wearing a hood like this, so of course many believe it was a dark part of the afterlife photobombing this event. Honestly, I totally believe that. This is a weird one. The hood, maybe I've been watching Harry Potter lately, I don't know. Maybe it's a Dementor, we actually don't know. Number 5, the ghost pilot. Oh, this one gives me the creeps. I'm hoping it's just a friendly ghost. I included it because it's kind of nice, but you never really know, honestly. This one, I did some research, it's creepy. Any sort of spirit I don't welcome. Yeah, I don't gamble on the afterlife. I'm actually all set. The ghost pilot is a photograph that shows a spirit from 1987. A woman named Mrs. Sayer was visiting an airfield in England, so of course she did the classic tourist thing and got a photo in the cockpit. We all do it at some point, but do you ever think of who may have died in that exact spot before? After the age of 10 years old, I was like, you know what, I understand ghosts, I'm not gonna sit in that tank. I'm good, thanks. People swear the Titanic was a cursed ship and that spirits were responsible for the ship's bad luck. Now, next time you want to sit in the pilot's seat, look around for spirits, because this image was developed and it appears that somebody or something was in the helicopter with Miss Sayer the whole time. Number 4, the Paris Demon. Originally, the tunnels under Paris were built for stone mines, but near the end of the 18th century, it turned into something haunting. Cemeteries were starting to fill up, and I mean that in a literal sense, and humans didn't figure out how to be clean, so bodies would just be laying on the sides of the roads. They started to pile up over time, so the solution was to use these catacombs. They were no longer needed for those mines anymore, so might as well use them as a mass graveyard. And now we have the scariest basement in the world. We have walls of skulls that on one hand, it's cool as hell, it's natural history, it's gothic, yet beautiful, but when Google Maps tried to give a user an up-close look, it seemed to have caught a shadowy demon figure. With more than 6 million souls laying down there, it doesn't shock me to hear about something like this at all. There's a video of the street view, and in it you can see this figure. Check it out yourself. Number 3, Demons Are Us. For this next one, we'll be going down the Lego aisle. Yeah, how fun. A haunted Toys R Us. Can you imagine all those toys starting up at night by themselves? Bay Area's haunted Toys R Us is no longer a thing. Thankfully, as of 2018, that location closed down, but its tales, they live on forever. The Sunnyvale Toys R Us demonic presence appeared in the background of this photo. But of course, like others on this list, the people present at the time of the photo swear that nobody else was there. It's like everyone has bad memory, or everyone has good memory. I can't really tell right now. It's like, could this be a spirit or a demon caught on tape that just happens to be at a Toys R Us? I vote yes. Employees talked about creepy things happening there at night all the time, and the Sunnyvale store is indeed haunted by more than one ghost. That's what people say. The store stood where the Murphy farm once stood, so many think the spirit is the ghost of Johnny Johnson. I don't know, the fact that Ouija boards are a toy that is commonly used to, I don't know, communicate with spirits, maybe closing these doors was the best call. I don't think we welcomed in any good spirits. I don't think any spirits are clocking in for work, you know what I mean? Now it's closed, so I'm like, it didn't work. Whatever we tried, didn't work. Number 2, ghost boots. These boots are made for haunting, and that's just what they'll do. Yeah, I put a pair of boots on this list. That's where we're at now. This photo of a young girl may look like a classic family trip, but upon closer inspection, it seems like somebody or something is standing behind her. Now, of course, her father said that nobody was behind her at the time that it was taken, and I agree that, and like honestly, and I believe him. Honestly, that would be pretty weird if he was like, hey, can you stand right here? Yeah, you behind my daughter, don't move, but you stand right here in this open field, thanks. Ka-ching. I don't believe it, I don't buy it, it's weird. This shot was taken at Zushi Zenagawa, Japan, and you can see boots and what looks like clothing sticking out from behind the child's elbow. The kid's father said, I took a few photos, and when I was looking through them at night, I noticed the boots behind her. I took several photos in the same spot, but only one of them had boots. You always see that in movies, right? At night they're going through and they see like it's 2 a.m. It's never at a Walmart while it's being developed. They don't find these photos in a bright, busy area. It's always in like a dark kitchen. Ugh, it's creepy. So he freaked out and then put it on Reddit, and then now we're here. Full circle. And finally, coming in at number 1, cave drawings. I know these aren't photos, but come on, there's nothing more eerie than humanity's origin, right? Let's do it. Let's go back. Let's turn the clocks back. And for archaeologists from around the world, this cave system in France doubles as the world's oldest art gallery. These Paleolithic paintings are a haunting to look at. They were created from humans about 20,000 years ago, and it's now considered a heritage site. There's many of these caves around the world. So if you're thinking about sneaking down there in the Lascaux caves and taking a look yourself, well, you better think again. The cave was opened originally in 1948, but due to carbon dioxide levels from visitors, it was closed in 1963. Learning about our history is challenging, and when it's slowly fading away, that surely doesn't help. Just gotta hold your breath while you read. This is crazy. I'm currently reading a book called Supernatural by Graham Hancock, and in it he tries to dig through history to find the origins of spirituality, and markings in caves like these ones from ages ago definitely help. They resemble these demon-looking creatures almost, and this is long before religion. These drawings were supposedly from hallucinations, but many believe it's one of the first accounts of a demon interacting with a human. It's just drawn drawn on a cave wall. Pecmerle is a cave in France that also has these strange drawings, and some say they resemble aliens, others of course voting demons. What do you guys think? This is from 25,000 years ago. Write all your thoughts and concerns down in the comments below.
Starting off this countdown, we had the SS Watertown. Back in 1924, the SS Watertown was traveling through the Pacific Ocean when two of its crew members sadly passed away. The men were James Courtney and Michael Meehan. They had been assigned to clean out a cargo tank, but while doing so, they sadly were overcome by gas fumes and died. Their bodies were tossed to sea. The next day, other crew members got quite the fright when they saw the heads of the two dead men on board the ship. Later, they saw their faces in the sea. This photo was taken of the phenomena. What you're looking at is the waves in the water, and you can clearly see the men's faces in it. Now, for those of you who think that this is fake, the captain took this photo and then the film was left intact and untouched until they reached the port in New Orleans. That's when the captain handed it over to officials of the city's services company. When the film was developed, everyone believed the crew because the photo is physical evidence of ghosts. Apparently the haunting did stop though when the crew was changed over, so maybe it's not the ship that was haunted by the men, but the crew. Coming in at number 9, we have the Toys R Us ghost. Apparently the Toys R Us in Sunnyvale, California isn't so sunny. That's because the Toys R Us was built on what used to be farmland. Years ago, a man named Jan Johnson had a thing for a woman named Elizabeth, the daughter of the farmland's owner. But sadly, one day he lost his life while chopping wood. While doing so, the axe slipped and gouged him right in his leg. He slowly bled to death. Now it's believed that the store is haunted by Johnson's ghost, who roams the aisles looking for Elizabeth. Now this photo was taken in 1978. You see the man in the back leaning up against the shelves? That figure was not there when the photo was taken, so it's believed that that is the ghost of Johnson. How eerie. In our 8th spot today, we have the orbs. This is a way to tell if your home is haunted. Orbs are said to be energy of life forms that have died. They are said to be the first stage or a sign of a ghost manifestation. The most common way to see them is through photographs. They are these white glowing balls of light, but some have appeared as different colors. Although it is quite rare, some have seen orbs with their naked eye as well. That's when you know for sure that it's not just dust you're seeing and it's actually a ghost. In our 7th spot today, we have the dead. Another sign of paranormal activity is finding an abundance of dead bugs in or around your house. If the spirit is malevolent, its evil energy will drain the life of those around it, killing indoor and outdoor plants, animals, bugs, you name it. One woman named Shelley knew she was haunted when she started finding a number of dead moths on her windowsill. Moths are often the insects that demons love for some reason. Then Shelley's houseplants started dying out of nowhere, despite some of them being brand new. She got really scared when she woke up one morning to 3 dead crows around her house. I hope she cleansed herself and that house or got the heck out of there, cause something was definitely coming for her. In our 6th spot, we have the Tulip Staircase Ghost. The Queen's house in Greenwich has quite the reputation for being haunted. This house has been home to many female royals over the centuries, and now it's a tourist attraction for any curious individuals. Well, in 1966, a retired Canadian reverend and his wife decided to visit the Queen's house. While they were there, they took some photos of the place, including a photo of the famous Tulip Staircase. It was not until they developed the photos did they realize that there appears to be a ghostly image holding onto the handrails of the stairs. In fact, the man sent the photo and the negatives to Kodak, and they confirmed neither had been tampered with, so they believe he caught a real ghost on film. The question is, who is this figure? Over the years, a number of visitors have claimed to have seen other ghosts. In particular, a lot of people have seen the ghost of a maid who died after being thrown off the staircase. She fell 50 feet to the ground. People have seen her dressed in old-fashioned clothing, mopping up blood from the bottom of the stairs. Who's trying to go there and go ghost hunting with me? Let me know in the comments below. I'd be down. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the disappearing objects. I know this has happened to you before. You place your keys down somewhere and when you go back to the spot, they're just not there. Honestly, it happens to me all the time. I just call my mom and somehow she just comes and finds it, like she has magic powers. Anyway, but it might not be your faulty memory to blame here. It could actually be a demon or ghost playing tricks on you. It's called the disappearing objects phenomenon. It's when an object disappears randomly only to reappear days later, maybe in the same spot, maybe in a completely different one. Paranormal researchers believe that entities do this by using water currents, electrical currents, or even your own energy. Moving on to number 4, we have 2 girls, 1 ghost. This photo was taken in Manila, Philippines in the early 2000s. It features 2 friends and a ghostly entity grabbing onto one of the girls' arms. They were terrified when they saw the outcome of this photo. They claimed that no one else was with them when the photo was taken, nor did they even feel a ghostly presence. Also, this photo was taken on a digital camera, so it's not like double exposure was to blame here. It's hella creepy how the ghostly arm is literally like reaching out to the girl and grabbing her. Run for your life, girl, run. In our 3rd spot today, we have the shadow people. It's said that the shadow people are one of the scariest types of paranormal activity. Unlike a real shadow, shadow people are much darker, and typically they can only be seen in your peripheral vision. I bet it's happened to you. You're sitting on your couch, minding your own business, when all of a sudden you swear you see something just run by the corner of your eye. You look, and nothing's there. You just saw a shadow person, and they are said to be hella evil. Let's take a trip to 1998 and hear the story shared by a man named Michael W. One night he woke up in the middle of the night and felt thirsty, so he went to the kitchen for a glass of water. That's when he got a feeling that someone was there watching him. He then said, and I quote, "There at the top of the basement stairs and in front of the light switch, I could distinctly make out the figure of what I automatically assumed was my good friend Larry. He called out to him being like, 'Larry, what are you doing, man?' But the figure didn't respond. That's when he knew it wasn't Larry. All of a sudden the shadow lunged at him. Michael grabbed a knife and jabbed it towards him, but the entity went right through his body and continued on past him. He turned on the light and it disappeared. Michael was horrified by this experience. What's even creepier is that his house address ends in 666. He literally bought a haunted house. Nice one. In our 2nd spot, we have the bad smells. Next time you're sitting on your couch chilling and you get a whiff of rotten eggs, don't blame it on your dog tooting, okay? It could be that a demon or ghost is present in your home. It's said that evil spirits or demons can be identified with bad smells, like sulfur or rotten eggs. If the smell comes out of nowhere, then leaves out of nowhere, either you let one rip or a demon was just in your presence. Other people have claimed to randomly get a whiff of perfume or wood smoke or cigars. This can also mean that a ghost is present. Maybe the ghost used to smoke a pipe when they were alive, or would always wear a signature perfume scent. I will say that most of the paranormal stories that I have read involves families moving into a new home that they don't know is actually haunted. Strange things will begin to happen, like doors will slam on their own, they'll hear eerie footsteps, and of course they will smell sulfur. All signs that the home is haunted. And in our number 1 spot today, we have Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Located in Kentucky, this hospital was originally built in 1910 as a hospital for patients with tuberculosis. Sadly, tons of patients ended up dying there from the disease. And the hospital did more harm than good. Rumor goes that the hospital was mistreating their patients and conducting experiments on them. In fact, they had an area in the hospital called the Death Tunnel or Body Chute, where they would literally just dump the dead bodies down. So yeah, no surprise that this place is haunted. In this photo, you can clearly see a ghostly female figure standing in the now abandoned asylum. This is believed to be Mary Lee, a nurse who was impregnated by a doctor in the hospital. The doctor was then like, "Ha, that's not my problem, I don't actually love you." So Mary, not having many options, hung herself in one of the rooms at the hospital. This is a photo of her ghost.
Starting us off at number 10 is the elevator ghost. Now when I first saw this video, nothing was really happening for the longest time, so I genuinely thought it was just gonna be a waste of my time, but then it was like a mic drop happened. To preface this, the owner of the footage is adamant that the footage is 100% authentic and real, so let's just take that and discuss. Now the CCTV footage was from February of 2008, and you can see 2 workers talking while waiting for the elevator. They eventually get into the elevator and talk some more, can't believe we're working overtime again, doesn't the boss suck, I didn't even get a Christmas bonus this year, etc, etc, you know how it is. And mind you, while they're talking, both guys are leaning against a little railing in the elevator. They reach their floor and they both leave, but as the one on the left lets go of the railing to leave, you see this white ghost zombie figure that is left behind, almost like the man was standing in the ghost, or vice versa. The men leave, not even realizing what was in the elevator with them the whole time, and this ghost has its skull hanging down really low and is walking very, very slowly out of the elevator as well. Now I don't even know how this could have been a hoax, because the ghost is literally there as soon as the man moves. Like, it wasn't edited, there was no compartment it could have been hiding in. I just don't see any fakeness in it, I just see horror. Let me know what you guys think. Fake or nah? Coming in at number 9 is the Brown Lady, and this photograph might be the most well-known ghost photo ever taken. Ever. Now, the infamous picture was captured back in 1936 by photographers who were documenting 17th century Raynham Hall in Norfolk, England for a magazine. It said that the photographer Captain Hubert had his head under the focusing cloth, so he wasn't really paying attention, but his assistant Indre Shearer exclaimed that she saw a veiled form gliding down the stairs and told him to quickly take a picture. Now, he took the picture, but when he got out from under the focusing cloth to see for himself, the life form was nowhere to be found, which made him think Indre had made up the whole thing. But when the photo got developed, it was so very clearly in the middle of the staircase that it's actually astonishing. A full white pale shadow of an apparition that people think is Lady Dorothy Townshend. Dorothy died in the early 1800s from chickenpox, but other stories circulated saying her husband locked her in a bedroom forever because she committed adultery. That is a saucy story for a saucy ghost. At number 8 we have CCTV footage. So back in 2014 in New Mexico, surveillance footage at a police station revealed what appeared to be a ghost gliding along from the right side of the room to the left. Now, according to officers, that area was completely secured. The gates were locked, none of the alarms went off or were tripped, so a real human being definitely did not make their way inside. Honestly, I don't know why we're giving this ghost a hard time and calling it out on the news. Like, maybe it was just a law-abiding ghost and it was just patrolling the station to keep it safe. Maybe it was a police officer when it was alive, so it was just having a nostalgic night. We don't know its story. Who are we to judge? Carry on, young ghost. On your way. Do what you were doing. Carry on. Shoo. Filling at number 7 slot is the Baby Crib Menace. Back in March of this year, a couple based in Michigan captured a blurry pale spirit form of some kind moving past their daughter Lily's crib. The footage caught on the baby monitor literally shows a white pale figure gliding past, and the couple even claimed that Lily sustained unexplainable scratches on her body after the incident, which they obviously blamed on the ghost. Nah, B, if a ghost is terrorizing my kid, you bet I would go ghost hunter on its ass and literally find a way to banish it into the ether, back into the afterlife, back to whatever hell it escaped from. Not on my watch, Casper. You ain't getting my kid. No, no. Now at number 6 is Lord Cumbermere. Amateur photographer Sybil Corbett set up a camera at the Cumbermere Abbey Library located in Cheshire, England. She took an hour-long exposure while the funeral of her brother-in-law Lord Cumbermere was happening 4 miles away. Now, the Lord had died in a riding accident and was being buried simultaneously, but somehow when the photos were developed, an apparition can be clearly seen sitting on the seat in the photo, and people speculated that it was Lord Cumbermere since the chair was actually his when he was alive. On the other side, skeptics say a servant entered the room and sat in the seat while the exposure took place, and that's what the apparition was. But most, if not all, the staff was at the funeral itself anyway, and the apparition is wearing a collared shirt, which I don't think a servant would wear or could afford at the time, so I mean, I think the skeptics are very much wrong. Sorry. Haters gon' hate. Haters be sipping on that haterade. Coming in at number 5 is the Ghostly Pupper. I know this list is meant to be horrifying and scary, but I mean, I found a ghost dog captured on film and it's honestly really cute, so I couldn't not include it. And I know there's enough dog lovers out watching this right now that I'd be forgiven, so I'm not even sorry. So anyway, the story of these dogs was written in the 1939 print of Life magazine, and it goes like this. The owner of this dog actually had 2 dogs, a cute little white terrier and a large other breed of of dog, and both puppas were best friends. What a cute story. Sadly, the terrier died and the big dog was absolutely heartbroken, and I mean that's very understandable. No one's trying to lose their best friend. Now a psychic photographer snapped a photo of the owner and the big dog, and you can very clearly see the spirit of the little dog hovering on the backside of the bigger one. It's like its head is just resting on the big dog's tailbone, and I thought this was so cute. Like the little one just misses the big one too. They both just miss each other. It's a very cute, heartwarming story. And we need that for number 5. A nice palate cleanser, you guys. At number 4 is Madonna. Not like a virgin Madonna. She's very much still alive. Let's not get it twisted. This is Madonna of Bachelor's Grove. Now, this photo was taken by the Ghost Research Society of America when they visited the abandoned Bachelor's Grove Cemetery back in 1991. Mary Huff was taking black and white infrared photographs on the site, and despite crazy readings being observed on her equipment, no one saw anything out of the ordinary. But when the film got developed, one photograph revealed a woman sitting on a tombstone on her own. She was wearing out-of-date clothing and was staring into the distance, so we don't really know what was going on with her. Was it her tombstone she was sitting on while contemplating why she was dead? Was she sitting on her mother's tombstone, her father's, her lover's? We have no idea. But she was very clearly captured, very clearly there. What's your story, Madonna? Filling our number 3 slot are the faces in the water. Now this one requires some backstory, so let's take it back. Back in December of 1924, James Courtney and Michael Meehan, 2 crewmen of the SS Watertown, had a freak accident on their vessel. The men were cleaning the cargo tank of the oil tanker but were suffocated by gas fumes and died quite quickly. They were buried at sea near the Mexican coast, but the next day one of the crew members reported seeing James and Michael's faces in the waves. The man saw their faces for a solid 10 seconds before they faded away, and it kept happening over the course of the next few days. When the vessel arrived in New Orleans, the paranormal events were relayed to the crew's employers, and they suggested trying to photograph the occurrence. Employers just don't care. They're like, oh, photograph that, I can sell it for millions. Goodbye. So Captain Tracy bought a camera for the rest of the trip, and when the faces did appear again, they captured this image. And ironically, after the crew of the ship changed, the sightings were no longer reported either. So I mean, maybe these two were just playing a really sick joke on their former crewmen. They're like, ha ha ha, we may be dead, but at least we're having a good time. Now at number 2 is the little boy, and this picture was captured so clearly that I'm still like, is this Photoshop? Is this actually real? You guys tell me. So back in 2008, Neil Sandbach, a photographer, was on a farm in Hertfordshire taking pictures for a couple who wanted to have their wedding at the location. When Neil was going through his digitals later on, he saw one picture that had what appeared to be a glowing ghost figure of a little boy peeking out from the corner of the building. And can you see he's so clearly there? I can even make out his facial features, which creeped me out even more because his face looks more like a skull than it does a face. The couple later asked the farm staff if they had ever seen anything paranormal or weird at the farm, and a lot of them shared that they had seen a young boy in white night clothes. So I mean, say no more. I hope you didn't have your wedding there. That's just not a good omen to start your married life on. You know what I mean? Ghosts of little boys? No. I'm trying for happily ever after, not happily never after. You know what I mean? And finally, at number 1 is the man. This footage was captured on a car's dash cam in Thailand's Surat Thani province back in 2018. It was about 2:30 in the morning, and this car is just going down the highway when a man in blue shorts and a white shirt literally materializes out of nowhere. The car goes right through the man, and when the man turned around to check, the ghost was nowhere to be found. I just don't get how he appeared from literally nothing. He just came out of the ether. Most people who've seen the footage think it was a ghost, whereas skeptics think it was a shadow being reflected in front of the car somehow, which I mean, make that make sense to me. I don't understand how that works. Reflection of what? The rear view mirrors are pointed behind you. What is reflecting in front of me? Please tell me. Exactly, that's what I thought. And I'm not even a car mechanic.
Kicking off the list at number 10, the Old Arnold Estate. If you're a horror fan like myself, then part of you probably wants to visit this Conjuring house. I don't know, like 10% of me wants to peek in. Or Ed and Lorraine's Museum of Horrors. I think I'd rather go there. The house in the film looked a lot fancier than it did in real life. It was more cinematic, and they made it look even more creepy as a property in general, but that's what happens when you have millions of dollars in your budget. You're trying to make a more memorable horror film too. Now this is the real house. It's referred to by the Perrin family as the Old Arnold Estate, and it's located in Harrisville, Rhode Island. On the real property, there's a barn to the left of the house. So I have to say, the original kind of seems way scarier than the movie. I don't know, barns creep me out. A lot of spiders. Aside from paranormal horrors, the Perron family also had to deal with financial ones. When the family did live there, a pipe burst and flooded their business, so they had to sell more than 85% of their new land. Number 9, witch history. The Conjuring film, the main plot here of course is a witch named Bathsheba Sherman, and it's haunting the grounds, or the house. It's a wickedly evil spirit, and the real Bathsheba was born in 1812. She married a Rhode Islander named Judson Sherman, and they had 4 children. Also, apologies if I'm saying her name wrong, but I'm kind of okay with that. I don't want this to be like a Beetlejuice situation where she just pops up randomly and just pukes in my mouth. Herbert Sherman, her firstborn, arrived when she was 37 years old. He lived a long life as a farmer, and he grew old and all that jazz, but the other 3 children that were born afterwards, there's barely any information about them at all. Julia, Edward, or George. The mother, the witch, passed away on May 25th, 1885, 4 years after her husband did. Now there are stories that her body turned to stone when she died, or it was some sort of paranormal form of paralysis, because of course over time these stories change. It's like the longest game of broken telephone. Obviously a few things here are fake, but what the Perron family did find was the beginning of something very real. Number 8, Bathsheba's gravestone. The grave of the witch was found alarmingly close to the Perron family's new home, right on the property next door. Her resting place now is in the cemetery right across the street from the fire station near downtown Harrisville. So if you're ever visiting Rhode Island and you want to maybe, I don't know, be possessed by a witch, throw that in the GPS. Enjoy, and also, good game. They didn't initially think the strange happenings were because of a witch gravesite, obviously. That's not where their mind went to first, but that's when Ed and Lorraine were asked to help out. And they knew right away that it was, well, the witch next door. Number 7, the hauntings begin. The initial incident happened a few years before the paranormal investigators were actually called in. Carolyn, the mother, she was laying on the sofa, and then all of a sudden her leg muscle started to have a spasm. Her calf was in this immense pain. She had no idea what was happening. It was out of nowhere. Then when she looked down to the ground, she saw this puddle of blood. She got stabbed by something. It was a very small puncture. And no, if you're thinking it was a bee, it wasn't. She looked and looked for a sign, anything to hint what just happened, and she couldn't find anything. Also, it was a perfect circle. Carolyn described it as if it was a large sewing needle that went through her skin. Ouch. And in true witchy fashion, the Perron family also had broom problems. That's right, the broom would go missing or it would move place to place. And even more strange, Carolyn would sometimes find piles of dirt in the middle of a recently cleaned kitchen. You gotta love a helping, cold, dead hand. Number 6, levitating chair. In the movie, the exorcism happens at the end, of course. It's like a happy-ish ending, but in real life, that exorcism never took place. Lorraine Warren has since said that her husband, Ed, would have never performed such a thing, nor would he try. But Andrea Perron, one of the 5 children, has come forward many, many years later, and she said that she witnessed a seance with her mother, where her mother was speaking in a different language, and she also did not sound anything like her mom. Not even close, which is terrifying. And as Andrea recalls, her mother's chair then started to levitate like it did in the movie, and then after a beat, she was launched out of the chair across the room. It wasn't just Carolyn that experienced these horrible games either. As we saw in the film adaptation, the children too were busy with their own spirits. Number 5, the music box. We had to include one of the creepiest elements of the Conjuring movie, the Perron family music box. Director James Wan wanted to use this music box in the first film because, well, mirrors and creepy tones make for great suspense, but also this was a real haunted artifact from the real house. Today the box is safely stored in the Warrens Museum alongside other items that look more or less normal upon first glance, but they're actually extremely haunted. I'll get to those in a bit. This part in the movie actually scared the out of me. Any mirror scene, I can't do it. I always like eat my hoodie. They always do it so slow too. They're like I would slam it, just slam it, have toothbrushes fly out, I don't care, I'm scared. But this was real life, you can't forget that. This music box actually caused so much trouble for these poor girls. Specifically April, the youngest of the Perron children. She found this antique in the house and she used it to communicate to another spirit, this spirit named Rory. Number 4, other owners. Andrea Perron has told us that every single person who has once lived in this house, they all experienced some sort of paranormal activity. That's comforting. Some left this house screaming and running with only a few belongings. That would be me day 1. I wouldn't even make it till night. I'd be out of there by 4:30 p.m. Sharp. When the parents sold the house after all these haunting encounters, the guy who moved in then temporarily to start fixing up the house, he left too. He left without his car, he left without all of his tools, and yes, he even left without his clothing. Ghosts don't wait for you to put on pants. That's what I learned doing this. Ghosts do not wait. The current owners of the 18th century farmhouse, Corey and Jennifer Heisen, bought the home in June 2019, and yes, they've already seen stuff. You may ask, who in their right mind would move into a known haunted house? Well, paranormal investigators. That's exactly who. The scariest couple ever. They're like, oh, this is perfect. Over $1 million. They're like, debit, we'll take it. Let's get new wallpaper. So far, they've actually witnessed doors opening and closing on their own, and also loud knocks on the wall. Corey, the husband, admits to having a hard time on nights when he's all alone. He says he doesn't feel anything evil per se, but the house does feel busy. Number 3, the Warren Occult Museum. I mentioned the music box earlier, which sits now in the Warrens' creepy personal occult museum. Once belonging to the Perron family, the music box is one of many strange artifacts. In the museum, there is a vampire coffin. Yep, you heard me. A satanic idol, the conjuring mirror. There's a shadow doll that apparently has the ability to visit your dreams and in Freddy Krueger-like fashion, stop your heart while you're asleep. And also Annabelle is in there as well, but she's got friends. Annabelle has friends. You'll be pleased to know that Annabelle is actually the least creepy of all of them. A haunted pearl necklace puts Martha Wayne to shame right next to the haunted glass eyeballs, of course. I'd love to know more about the glass eyeballs. Let's see that movie. But one of the most fascinating items in here has to be the headless T-Rex toy. Is that from Toy Story? Is this Sid's room from Toy Story? What a crossover that would be. Number 2, other incidents. A total of 8 generations of one extended family lived and passed away in that same house, all before the arrival of the Perron family. Andrea has been quite vocal about the happenings, and to be fair, if I had a fraction of her childhood, I wouldn't shut the up. That sounds like an insane time. I would never sleep. She also confidently states that a lot of those souls never left the house. The Black Book of Burryville, which already sounds creepy, was the town's public records book at the time, and on the property there, it stated that there were 2 hangings that took place. Poison was used in a death type scenario. There were 2 drownings, not 1, but 2, and then 4 men who were passing by just happened to freeze to death on the property. Andrea has a book, it's called House of Darkness, House of Light. So if you're curious to read up on more of these happenings, go right to the source herself and support. Finally, number 1, a photograph of Bathsheba Sherman. You always see those UFO videos and they're filmed with like a BlackBerry curve. It's absolute trash, it's like 420p, it's horrible, not convincing at all. Not even, no zoom, no effort, just clover fields. There's never clear evidence of anything nowadays, but we may just have a clear photo with the real witch, Bathsheba Sherman. This photo is from the Perron family farmhouse back when it was still the Arnold estate. This was 1885, so the witch was most likely in her 70s at the time, but still it's hard to tell, the photo is still grainy. But that's because it was 1885, right? You know, it's not a BlackBerry. This is like the world's oldest, creepiest game of Guess Who. This witch lived next door to the farm, and although we'll never really know who is who, many believe she's the lady in the middle, closest to the camera, like right over here. Also, the fact that she's wearing some sort of mask makes this grainy photo even more haunting. She's standing by herself. I feel like the vibe of that group shot was off. Like nobody wanted to stand next to the literal witch. I don't blame them. Guys, do you think the real Bathsheba Sherman is in this photo? The lady on the left looks a little bit witchy. I don't know, who am I to judge?
Number 10, SS Watertown. In December 1924, James Courtney and Michael Meehan were crew members on the SS Watertown. They were cleaning a cargo tank of the oil tanker, and they were overcome by gas fumes, which resulted in both of their deaths. Due to this, the crew buried them at sea, but to their astonishment, the ghostly faces of the soldiers appeared in the water the next day. Yeah, like in the waves. Later on, many other crew members reported seeing the faces as well. The faces were so visible that the captain of the ship ordered them to take a picture of them to have for proof, you know, so people didn't think that they were crazy. And this was smart, because if someone told me they saw faces of 2 dead men in the water, I would probably never talk to them again and think that they were cuckoo. Although, in the picture, you can clearly see 2 faces, which is just plain creepy. When the SS Watertown returned to land, the negative was even checked for fakery and proclaimed genuine. So yeah, just 2 faces chilling in the waves. No big deal. Number 9, the nurse. This photo was taken in an abandoned tuberculosis hospital in Louisville, Kentucky called Waverly Hills Sanatorium in 2006. As you can imagine, many people passed away here, and it's rumored to be filled with paranormal activity. In recent years, it has become one of America's most popular destinations for ghost hunters. This image depicts a woman just standing to the right side, but when the photo was taken, no one was there. It was a ghost. It has been agreed among the paranormal
paranormal community that the photo depicts Mary Lee, a nurse who took her own life in the hospital. The story goes this poor woman was impregnated by a doctor who worked in the hospital but later wanted nothing to do with her. Nowadays she wanders the halls of the hospital and interacts with ghost hunters. Number 8. Tulip Staircase. Reverend Ralph Hardy, a retired clergyman from White Rock, British Columbia, took this famous photograph in 1966. Originally, he only wanted to take a picture of the elegant tulip staircase in the Queen's House section of the National Maritime Museum in Greenwich, England. And I mean, I don't blame him. They're pretty. But upon development, the photo revealed a shrouded figure climbing the stairs. It's strange and unsettling, and Ralph said there was no one else in the frame when he took it. Experts who examined the original negative concluded that it had not been tampered with. The vicinity of the staircase is rumored to be haunted, and unexplained footsteps have often been heard there, so it's most likely something supernatural who just wanted their photo taken. Number 7. The Brown Lady. The Brown Lady of Rainham Hall is a ghost that reportedly haunts Rainham Hall in Norfolk, England. It became one of the most famous hauntings in the United Kingdom when photographers from Country Life magazine claimed to have captured its image. According to the legend, the Brown Lady is the ghost of Dorothy Walpole, the sister of Robert Walpole, generally regarded as the first Prime Minister of Great Britain. She was the second wife of Charles Townshend, second Viscount Townshend, who was notorious for his violent temper. The story goes that when Charles discovered that his wife had committed adultery with Lord Wharton, he punished her by locking her in her rooms in the family home, Rainham Hall. According to Mary Wortley Montagu, Dorothy was in fact entrapped by the Countess of Wharton. She invited Dorothy over to stay for a few days, knowing that her husband would never allow her to leave, not even to see her children. She remained at the Rainham Hall until her death in 1726 from smallpox. This is just an extremely sad story, and I can't imagine her pain. The first sighting of the Brown Lady was in 1835, and the photograph was taken in 1936. Number 6. Falling through the ceiling. Back in the 1950s, the Cooper family from Texas moved into their new house. Once there, they took a family photo, which seems normal, right? Well, not for them. When the picture was developed, the image of a body falling from the ceiling was clearly visible. To be clear, no one fell from the ceiling when they took the photo, so what happened? As further investigation on the story has brought no plausible explanation, there exist many speculations, including one that argues that the shadow is the ghost of the previous owner of the house. But my question is, why is he falling from the ceiling, and why did he have to ruin that beautiful family photo? I remember seeing this photo on the internet when I was probably too young to see it, and after all these years, this image still gives me chills. Ugh. Number 5. Backseat Ghost. On March 22nd, 1959, Mabel Chinnery and her husband drove to the graveyard in which her mother had been buried. Her mother had died a week previously, and they were going to take photos of her grave, and they did. As Mabel returned to the car, she decided to use her last remaining shot to take a candid picture of her husband waiting in the vehicle on the passenger side. Nothing was out of the ordinary, it was just a random photo, but when the pictures were developed, one of Mabel's friends pointed out that someone, believed to be her mother, appeared to be behind her husband in the back seat of the car. Now, was the figure her mother or some other spirit? Who knows? I mean, they were in a graveyard, it could have been anyone or anything. The photograph itself wasn't seen in the United States until the story got a whole page in the Sunday newspaper. Mabel stated that the spot where the unexpected figure appeared in the back of the car is where her mother always sat when they went for drives, so it makes sense that it could be her. An unnamed photo expert is quoted as saying, "The lady in the back can't be the result of a double exposure. If it were, the door's upright wouldn't block off part of her face, and she can't be a reflection in the window either." So maybe it really is Mabel's mother. Number 4. Wem Ghost. On November 19th, 1995, Wem Town Hall burned to the ground in Wem, Shropshire, located in England. During the fire, Tony O'Rahilly, a sewage farm worker who was also an amateur photographer, was originally stopped by police from approaching the burning building. He took a picture of the blaze from across the street with a 200mm lens. It appeared to depict the image of a young girl in the doorway of the burning building. Now, to be clear, there were no injuries injuries or fatalities from the fire, this was not a human. Locals who saw the photo believed it was the ghost of Jane Churm, a young girl who was accused in 1677 of starting a fire in the same town. The image of the girl in the doorway of the burning building was not noticed by Tony, the photographer, or the onlookers. It only appeared after the photo had been developed. I mean, if she was accused of starting a fire and then she popped back up in an area where another fire started, it seems like it really could be Jane. Number 3. The Spectre of Newby Church. The Spectre of Newby Church is the name given to a figure in the photograph taken in the Church of Christ the Consoler on the grounds of Newby Hall in North Yorkshire, United Kingdom. The image was taken in 1963 by the Reverend Kenneth F. Lord. As the figure appears to resemble a human, much speculation has been had regarding what type of person might be in the image. Most speculation by believers has concluded that it resembles a 16th century monk with a white shroud over his face, possibly to mask leprosy or another disfigurement. Others believe it looks like a plague doctor from the 16th and 17th centuries. Initial claims suggest that the figure would measure at 9 feet tall, but its feet are not visible, so it could easily be standing on a box, giving the impression of height. Some people thought the photo was due to double exposure, but photographic experts have concluded that the image is not the result of double exposure. So what was it, and why was it in a church? No one truly knows, but it's extremely frightening. What does it look like to you? Let me know in the comments. Number 2. Mystery Guest. On January 22nd, 1985, the Coventry Freeman organization and their guests stood in prayer during a dinner event. All the guests are still, and as it was a dark room, the photographer probably thought it would be the perfect time to allow for a longer than usual exposure to get enough light into the picture. Makes sense. Now, nothing was out of the ordinary at the time, but as people started to see the print of the picture, a mystery surfaced. Who was the robed figure standing near the end of one of the tables? No one had dressed up for the event, and no one remembers anyone standing there as they stood for prayer. The figure also seems to be taking part in the prayer, head slightly bowed, hands clasped in front. St. Mary's Coventry, Warwickshire is where the event was hosted. It has many legends of ghosts and paranormal activity, but I wonder why this being decided to join in prayer. It just gives me bad vibes, like evil lurks within it. And coming in at number 1 is The Young Boy. One of the most famous haunted houses in the United States is the Dutch Colonial House at 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York. The haunting stems from the night of November 13th, 1974, when 23-year-old Ronald Defoe ended the lives of all 6 members of his family. He was then arrested, convicted, and given 6 concurrent life sentences. In December of 1975, George and Kathy Lutz, along with their 3 children, moved into the house and claimed that spooky things were happening. For example, George would wake up at 3:15 every morning, which was the approximate time that Ronald committed his crimes. Kathy said she would feel a ghostly presence and be embraced by it. All of this and more caused the family to flee in fear after only staying in the house for 28 days, and honestly, I don't blame them. Due to this, demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren visited the house and set up time-lapse infrared cameras and caught this photo. The picture wasn't made public until 3 years later when George Lutz appeared on the Merv Griffith Show in 1979. Believers of the haunting think that the picture is the ghost of the youngest Defoe son, John Matthew, who was 9 at the time. Others believed it's a staged photo, but despite its controversy, this picture is one of the most frightening images from the Amityville horror.
Kicking off the list at number 10, demonic boy photo. That's a hot start. Doesn't matter where or when, but odds are you've probably seen this photo at some point in time. It's pretty haunting. You're not really gonna forget about it. Check it out. This photo was taken inside the Amityville house in 1976. It's a young boy with glowing white eyes. It was taken with automatic cameras equipped with infrared. A photographer named Gene Campbell took it, and Gene was working with paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren at this time. Yeah, the famous duo, now rocking the big screen Conjuring universe. They were on this case in real life, which is a fun little fact that not many know. This photo was revealed 3 years after it was taken on the Merv Griffin Show, and many believe this is the ghost of John DeFeo, one of the boys who lived there prior during the 1974 attack. We're still trying to cover this today. What do you guys think? Elaborate hoax, or perhaps this photo is the only solid piece of evidence that the Amityville house is indeed haunted? Number 9. New owners. So less than a year after the DeFeo attack, the house was listed at $80,000, which is absolutely insane. The property was massive and beautiful for that matter, despite the horrible history. Back in 1927, a young couple named John and Catherine and Moynihan, they built this home, and their families lived there until 1965, and then they sold it to the DeFeos. Now, nothing paranormal had taken place before this. Nobody went insane overnight. It was just a home. To see the price of $80,000 for this house, the Lutz family just couldn't say no. They of course got their new home cleansed as soon as they moved in. They had a priest come in and do his whole thing, but evidently it still wasn't enough. As soon as they moved in, the Lutz family started to hear banging on the walls. Doors would start slamming all by themselves, and George started to hear voices, but I'll get into that a little bit later on. They even got more than they bargained for when they moved in price-wise, because they discovered a secret room. Number 8, the Red Room. No, not that red room, sickos. When the couple first moved in, they had building plans, right? They wanted to see every measurement, every angle, every room, every nook and cranny. That's the whole point of moving into a home. You kind of need to know, what it is. Especially after something that horrible happens. You're like, okay, can we look at the basement, please? They discovered a small red room when they got there, not listed on these plans. It was a 4-foot by 5-foot room hiding behind a shelf in the basement. It was painted blood red. It wasn't actual blood, but still, it's creepy. Harry refused to go near it. See, Harry was the family lab, and we all know dogs don't lie. Especially when they do that half bark thing too. That's always creepy. When they're like, buh, buh. Like commit, bark or don't bark. Number 7, green ooze. In the old Amityville movie, based on the book, there's a scene where the walls are bleeding. Check it out. Now, while this adds a horror element to the film, it's also even more messed up in real life. Well, maybe not more, but it's definitely still odd. Green ooze would apparently leak through these walls, and green ooze would drip through the keyhole of the playroom door. That was the final touch that made the Lutz family decide to run for their lives, without bringing anything with them, might I add. Yeah, if my house was trying to Nickelodeon slime me at 3 a.m., I'd probably move out as well. When asked about the haunted ooze, both Kathy and George passed a lie detector test. They passed! We got ooze in the walls, Harry Potter's red room in the corner. What else? Number 6, demonic pig. Okay, that's what else. I have to mention this one. It's the weirdest details of all that I could find with this house and all the events that happened. The demonic pig incident, of course. We're not sure if this really happened or not, but either way, it's kind of funny, kind of creepy. The same lawyer who represented Ronald DeFeo had met with the Lutz family. They were looking to dive further into the demonic aspect of this whole case, so who better to talk to than the guy from the original family attack back in 1974, I guess. The lawyer came out and said that there was a cat that would often visit the Lutz family, and it would bug the family through the window sometimes. The lawyer, Weber, told us the cat thing, but the Lutz family claims that it was actually a demonic green-eyed pig that would terrorize them through these windows. Weber insists that this was all made up, but Daniel Lutz, who was 9 at the time of all of this, he said in a 2013 documentary that the demonic pig visits were very real. What do you guys think, demon pig or demon cat? Either way, both pretty silly. Number 5, moving sale. So when the Lutz family left the house and vowed to never return again right after what happened with the DeFeo family, that's one thing that's haunting in itself, but eventually the belongings have to be figured out. They have to be tossed or sold. And back in August 2010, they were sold. There was this massive yard sale, a moving sale rather, where they just got rid of everything. And by this time, there had now been 2 movies on the Amityville Horrors, so fans showed up. People showed up with like Ryan Reynolds t-shirts. There were hundreds lined up around the block for the chance to buy something from the Amityville house. There was even a sign that said no children, no cell phones, no cameras. Yeah, like it's a Lady Gaga concert. You have to like tuck your phone away. But the disturbing part here is that actual neighbors showed up. It was hard on them because they actually knew the DeFeo family. This was emotional for them. They haven't seen anything in the house for years. But now they have to wait behind 100 haunted house spooky fans. How disturbing is that? A violent attack on a family, and then some dude from Phoenix is like, I got the TV remote. Still works. Yes. Number 4, address change. Okay, back in 2017, the house sold again, this time for $605,000. A bit more bang for your buck. The famous 112 Ocean Avenue is now 108 Ocean Avenue, and they changed the number to hopefully deter tourists. Could you imagine ghost hunting teams just showing up out of the blue while you're in the middle of brunch? I get it, change the address, change the name, everything. The house has actually been owned by 4 different families since the attack back in the 70s. And the house honestly has never looked better than today. None of those other families reported any paranormal activity, and when you consider the fact that the Lutz family was in a financial struggle, it doesn't seem too crazy to make up a paranormal story and then try and sell it to the world. Evidently, if that's the case, it worked. We're doing it. I'm doing it right now. It's my job to do this right now. Perhaps one of the darkest details recovered was from the Lutz family lawyer. Number 3, many bottles of wine. When you hear about the demonic pig head or green ooze coming from the walls, you gotta think at one point, okay, this is obviously made up. This has to be a lie. I myself have never seen ooze coming from a keyhole, and the Lutz former lawyer, William Weber, straight up came out and said that these hauntings were discussed and planned out and never happened. They were discussed over many bottles of wine. Yeah, that ought to do it. The same lawyer as Ronald DeFeo had to deal with this. What a life. In 1979, Weber told People magazine that he helped create these stories, he was involved, and that they all took real life incidents but gave them a haunting twist, like the cat and then the pig head, for instance. That's what many bottles of wine will do to you. Maybe the walls weren't covered in ooze or blood or anything, maybe they were just covered in wine because they were all drunk, banging into the halls trying to plan out how they can be rich. Or maybe the entire thing was real. This next one should spark a conversation. Number 2, Daniel Lutz. Daniel was just 9 years old when these hauntings took place. He was 9 when he and his family had to run away in the middle of the night. He's not gonna forget that. That's gonna be some trauma up here. He's recently told his side of the story in a documentary called My Amityville Horror. Now the film's director, Eric Walter, says he believes something happened to these people, but we just don't know exactly what it was yet. He was contacted by a friend of Daniel's, and then come 2009, Walter and Daniel met. Daniel was now in his 40s, and he's not in the best shape when it comes to talking about the house still. He says he's been running away from this thing his entire life, and now finally it caught up. Also, Daniel's friend just totally outed him. I don't know who that is, but come on, man. He's like running away from a haunted house, and he's like, that's the guy, that's Daniel, get him. Daniel lives a quiet life now, but to this day he stands by the fact that that house was haunted, and he has nightmares of everything that happened still today. Number 1, occult ties. Okay, so we've heard some things that sound very real. The DeFeo lawyer, his side, the son of the Lutz family who was trying to avoid being discovered all this time. It's fishy, it's all a little fishy. But one of the biggest clues as to what really happened in that house lies in George's bookshelf. The stepfather, George Lutz, had a history with dabbling in the occult. And on top of that, he would often wake up every night at 3:15 a.m., the same time that those horrible events took place with the family prior. So many believe that George's interest in the paranormal is actually what led him to be possessed by these dark spirits. The same spirits that perhaps had something to do with the brutal history to the family beforehand, the DeFeos.